At the dawn of the 20th century, Grand Railway hotels had flourished in the East, and Canadian Pacific's closest Grand Railway hotel to the Rockies was over 1,000 kilometers away in Winnipeg at the Royal Alexandria Hotel, as well as the home of the Fort Garry, which was a Grand Trunk-owned hotel, both of which are obviously competing against one another. So with Calgary being less than 100 kilometers away from the Rockies, the spotlight turned for Canadian Pacific towards Calgary, into a gateway to the Rockies and their newest crown jewel in the ever-growing catalog of Grand Railway hotels. Canadian Pacific would begin construction on this new luxury hotel in 1911, and in 1913 the hotel was complete and named the Palliser, named after Captain John Palliser, this guy, an Irish geographer and explorer of the 1800s who led an expedition west to map from Thunder Bay into the Canadian Rockies here at the Palliser mountain ranges just outside of Banff, symbolizing a symphony of exploration and luxury at Calgary's newest hotel. The Palliser Hotel would open on June 1st of 1914 at a cost of $1.5 million, but the grand opening was overshadowed by tragedy because although the series is focused on the Grand Railway hotels, Canadian Pacific had a huge fleet of ocean liners running from Quebec over to Europe and west across the Orient and into Asia. And 2 weeks earlier, the Empress of Ireland, a Canadian Pacific ocean liner, was sunk in a collision with a cargo ship just hours after leaving Quebec City along the St. Lawrence River, with only 400 of the 1,400 passengers surviving the sinking. And because of this, Canadian Pacific opted for a ceremony-free grand opening. Now, the Palliser Hotel received a lot of negative feedback from the city, citing that Canadian Pacific had built the Palliser too big and too tall. So in 1929, the Palliser would receive a 4-story addition, transforming it into Calgary's tallest building, boasting over 400 guest rooms and suites, and was complete just in time for Canadian Pacific's new flagship passenger train, the Dominion, which would run from Montreal to Vancouver twice daily from 1933 until 1966. By 1940, the Palliser Hotel was a part of the growing list of Grand Railway hotels across Canada, fueled by the fierce rivalry between the Canadian Pacific and Canadian National Railways to offer the best rail travel experience, the most luxurious of hotels, and attract the most tourists. From the hotels that Canadian National had inherited following the Grand Trunk Pacific's bankruptcy, like the Hotel Macdonald in Edmonton, to the Fort Garry in Winnipeg, or Canadian Pacific's brand new Royal York that had just opened up in Toronto, or the Hotel Vancouver, which today is the second newest Grand Railway hotel in Canada and going to be the sole focus in next week's episode in this series on the Grand Railway hotels of Canada. Now, in April of 1955, Canadian Pacific would introduce their next flagship passenger train, the Canadian, and departures would pass twice daily outside the Palliser Hotel in downtown Calgary here, but by the 1960s, passenger rail travel was on the decline. In 1966 saw Canadian National Railways demolish their station 3 hours north in downtown Edmonton to make way for the new CN Tower, which would serve as their new station and a symbol to their resurgence in passenger rail travel to come. And shortly after, Canadian Pacific followed suit, demolishing their downtown station in Calgary to make way for a tower of their own, the Husky Tower, or as we now know it today, the Calgary Tower, and it opened in the summer of 1968, and like any good pissing contest, it would double the height of CN's tower in Edmonton. Now, this resurgence of Canadian passenger rail travel did not last long, because 10 years later, Canadian Pacific and Canadian National would hand off all passenger service in 1978 to a new government crown corporation we know today as Via Rail, while retaining ownership of their railway hotels. And service did actually thrive for a bit until 1990, when the Canadian government would then cut passenger service to Banff and Calgary forever, despite the fact in 1989, 170,000 passengers passed through the Edmonton-Jasper Northern Route and over 500,000 through here in Calgary, outside the Palliser Hotel, ending passenger service into Calgary and the influx of tourists getting off the train from the Rockies and staying at the city's Grand Railway Hotel. Now, the year 2000 saw the Canadian Pacific put a $28 million renovation into the hotel, and 2001 saw Canadian Pacific form Fairmont Hotels and began to rebrand all their hotels as Fairmont, now making the Palliser Hotel the Fairmont Palliser. And today in 2024, the Palliser blends timeless elegance with modern indulgence, unmatched guest services, incredible views of downtown Calgary, where 110 years after its first passenger checked in, my journey begins here as well.